How you doing, folks? This is Rick Manning, President of Americans for Limited Government. Thanks for joining us. Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. I know I did. From all of us here at ALG, just wanted to we hope that you had a great Thanksgiving and hope you were able to spend some time with family, loved ones, and others, just reconnecting. Sometimes we don't see each other all that much, and it's good to get together. And sometimes it's hard when we get together because we don't see each other all that much. But just hope it was a great time of respite and relaxation for you. I wanted to have a conversation today about something which is going on, which I think is actually on a major level, on a big picture level, one of the most important things that's happening, and it's kind of being covered in episodically, but not in terms of a big kind of the ramifications. But you can always tell what the ramifications are based on who's playing and who's caring about it. But first, I'm going to just give one last little plug. It was really yesterday was our last day when I could guarantee delivery of these calendars. But if you missed it, you still can't get them. And we're told there's a 3-week delivery time. And that's why we don't want to cut it too close. But if you go online at getliberty.org and go to the ALG merch section, you can still order calendars with a 99.9% certitude it'll get there. But if you wait until this week, until Friday, fact of the matter is every day we miss is a day that it doesn't get delivered to you. So we're pushing it. I had set the deadline as Cyber Monday. But I think being open and transparent, I can't guarantee the delivery, but it's pretty, once again, I'm being told 3 weeks delivery, so you can do the math yourself and see they should arrive in time. If the people who are doing the production get it done in the timeline they've said they're going to get it done in. Having said that, that's the only pitch I'm going to do on that. The other thing is we do have a piece that's going out to all those who are email subscribers, reminding you that there is an opportunity on Giving Tuesday to give money to Americans for Limited Government Research Foundation. If you like the things we're doing, help us out. If you, at the very least, check us out. And if you haven't already, I would urge you to go to getliberty.org and just subscribe to the free subscription to the daily newsletter, which has a lot of great content, has our cartoons, has all the different things we do, arrives in your inbox every morning, Monday through Friday, and some special editions sometimes on Saturday. So just keep yourself in the loop. And truthfully, with uncertainties related to social media and how many people actually get our stuff on social media, it's really important if you want to get the material every single day to allow us to email it to you. There's no charge to you for any of this. It is something we pay for. We pay for it because we want you to have the truth in your inbox every single day. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about Elon Musk. And the reason I want to talk about Elon Musk is a lot about what I just said about the uncertainty of social media platforms. What we're seeing is a battle of titans. And Elon Musk is at the center of it. I am not an Elon Musk, sycophant. I am not somebody who sits there and loves Elon Musk. And I'm not somebody who hates Elon Musk. I have attacked Elon Musk in the past because of his venture socialism and his dependence on government taxpayer dollars to build his companies, and rightfully so. I've applauded Elon Musk for trying to break away from the social media, actually oligarchy, and really try to make it so free speech is restored on the web. And that's really what we're talking about here. When Elon Musk set out to buy Twitter, what he discovered was that this was a quagmire that he was walking into. He was walking into a system where the employees literally wore their wokeism as a badge of courage, and encouraged each other to challenge each other who could be more woke. He walked into a circumstance where the board of directors initially fought like crazy to keep him from buying the company. And then when he said, fine, I won't buy the company, they fought like crazy to force him to buy the company. So he now owns the company. He's laid off a bunch of Twitter employees. And we've had circumstances where some advertisers have said, oh, well, we're not going to advertise anymore there, which including Apple, which has dropped about, has ended, said they're not going to be doing about $1.5 million of advertising on Twitter this year. Twitter's actual usership is, according to Musk, has been going up since he bought it, which is not surprising. It's a vibrant platform that is, and people have to tune into to Twitter to find out what Elon Musk is saying, and he uses the platform a lot. In fact, he may make Donald Trump look like a piker when it comes to using social media to cause stir and disruption. So it's so in some respects, he's an avid user of Twitter. And in doing so, he's validating the virtue of having diverse opinions on the platforms that are debating in a civil way back and forth. Because truthfully, if we don't talk to one another, there's no way we can come together on any of the issues that matter in this country. And it really is hard. And truthfully, Twitter is more about poking at each other than it is talking. But his goal is to, according to his self-described goal, is to make it so it's a conversation marketplace as opposed to a directed, only allowed to talk about certain things conversation marketplace. And that's where the trouble is. That's where the fight is. And that's why this is perhaps the least reported story, at least based on its actual real impact on the world. And here's why this matters. Twitter was set up, and the founders bragged that it was going to be a social media platform that would allow for dissidents in countries around the world to be able to communicate without government censorship. That was one of the things they were proud of when we had during the Obama administration, we had in the Middle East this summer where a lot of the different Muslim Brotherhood groups were rioting in the streets and trying to take over various governments in the Middle East. Twitter was one of the biggest vehicles they used to communicate because it couldn't be censored by the government. We see it time and again that when there are dissident activities around the world, it's Twitter that was one of the means of directly communicating what was going on. And journalists would monitor different people around the world to see what was happening and to get ideas on things they should write about, what was what was hot, what was not. And in fact, Donald Trump used Twitter quite aggressively and effectively to run a counterculture campaign against the establishment that caught the establishment off guard and once again, they didn't expect he would win the nomination, but the left was pretty happy he did because they thought he was beatable. And then in 2016, he beat them. And the people at Twitter and the people at Google and elsewhere and Facebook all vowed that they would never allow that to happen again. They'd never allow their precious platforms to be used to have somebody they didn't agree with win an election. And that's when we started seeing pervasive censorship on the platforms. But that's changed. And so we've seen that occur, and this is not news. Everybody's known about it. It's been talked about ad nauseum. That's not the story that hasn't been told. Everybody knows that the censorship on Google and the bearing of different people, of conservative websites, has been being done. It's deliberately done. We know that it's in their own. We see it. We've seen their own releases from Project Veritas about what happens, and they don't make any bones about it. It's a partisan platform. Facebook, as Mark Zuckerberg has talked about how the federal government has pressured Facebook and Twitter, for that matter, has pressured Facebook to engage in censorship of things that the federal government determined was misinformation, or disinformation, and that has been occurring since about 2018, actually, and really took root. It took root in 2020 when the Department of Homeland Security started telling Facebook and briefing Facebook and Twitter and others that, we really got to block misinformation. We have to make certain that people don't get the wrong idea about COVID the unapproved idea. The only conversation about COVID that could occur was conversations approved by Dr. Anthony Fauci. And so we had and the federal government, make no bones about it, Homeland Security had it on their website, CISA.org, CISA.gov, CISA.gov, is where it was housed. That they bragged about the censorship and getting on election security issues, on COVID issues, and a couple of other issues. So they were very proud of the fact that they were engaged in censorship. Now, subsequently, they say, there's been said in the last 3 weeks, oh, we didn't engage in censorship. We merely informed these social media platforms that there might be some problems in terms of the veracity of information. But we didn't compel them to do anything. Wink, wink. Let me just be clear, and I think you all know this. If the FBI comes to you and you're a company and they say, we really don't like what this stuff being put out there. Here's some better stuff. You think you can do something to make certain that lies aren't being spread on your platform? If you're that particular platform, and the FBI comes to you with that message, it's pretty darn compelling that you better comply with what they want you to do. And when what they want you to do happens to fit with your philosophical beliefs, it becomes very easy to be complicit in censorship. And this was a way that the FBI and Homeland Security figured out that they could use social media platforms to censor and say, oh, government isn't censoring anybody. There's no First Amendment rights violated here. It's private companies and it's their platform. And a lot of conservatives nodded their head and said, oh, yeah, well, it's their private property. What can we do? And forgetting that antitrust law specifically is aimed at this exact kind of domination of a marketplace that the social media companies have enjoyed. So there's a legislative component to it that, truthfully, I had conversations with the Department of Justice and the Trump administration about it, and some other day I'll go into that. That's a long story about the different options that occur. But ultimately, I think the key is the major media companies are too big, and they're operating as in a hegemonous way where they're basically all working together, and as a result, they were like four fingers and a thumb, all together. It doesn't do much damage, but when you ball it up in a fist, it can do some real harm. Well, they were a fist balled up. And the federal government was aiming that fist at the information it wanted to squelch. We saw it. We've all lived through it. We've seen the things banning stuff because it's COVID. Here's what the federal government says you should know about this. And they put a big gray screen over the information that actually turned out later on to be true. But that's how the information control mechanism has existed until Elon Musk bought Twitter. And they took that power so seriously that when a little startup called Parler, which many of you know about and may still belong to because it's still operating, when a little startup called Parler started having a few million people on it, and compared to the hundreds of millions, billions worldwide on a Facebook, it became such a threat because people were talking and talking about things that they weren't supposed to talk about, weren't supposed to be allowed to be talked about in 2020. And so what happened? Well, maybe it's 2019. I'm trying to remember the year. It doesn't really matter. Point is, it was a threat because it was taking on, it was growing, and it was growing by leaps and bounds. So what happened? Well, the web hosting service, Amazon Web Services, withdrew their web hosting. They said, we're not going to host your website anymore. Not because they didn't pay their bills, but because Amazon Web Services said, we don't like your content. Apple said, well, we're not going to allow most of these things operate off of the cell phone. So your mobile phone and so the mobile enabled app is critical for the survival of social media platforms. And Apple said, well, we're not going to allow your app. We're going to disable all the apps for Parler because we don't like your content policies. We think you're allowing too much free speech. And since we don't agree with free speech that's being offered, we're going to say we're going to put content controls on it. We're not going to sell your app anymore in a store or allow your app to be distributed. And we're going to disable the apps that already are out there, basically cutting off a massive audience. So what happens? So then Google does the exact same thing. And suddenly none of the apps for Parler work. They've effectively been wiped off the web by Amazon Web Services. And so effectively, Parler then spent almost 6 months trying to recover, and truthfully never has. They had some stops and starts and some other problems, but the fact of the matter is a product that was a vibrant product that was operating in the free market got destroyed because of the cartel, the Silicon Valley cartel that rose up against them. So many of us were pretty frustrated about that. And we're talking about antitrust. We're talking about all sorts of different things that could be done. And really weren't getting very far. We're talking about new platforms. Truth Social is going to be a new platform that's come from that. And in fact, I'm going to be talking to Devin Nunes, who's the CEO of Truth Social tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, live, and then we'll do some cut-ups and put out tape versions for people who can't be there live. But tomorrow, mark it on your calendar, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. I'm going to be interviewing Devin Nunes and talking about Truth Social, talking about he was the House Intelligence Committee chairman and the ranking member. And so he was at the heart of all the deep state stuff. He was investigating them. He was going after them. And no one knows more about how the FISA warrants were gathered and the like than Devin Nunes. So we're going to have some interesting conversations about what legally can be done to rein in the deep state based on his experience. I hope Devin's watching so he knows that's what I'm going to ask him. But we actually met with Devin about 5 years ago and had this conversation in his office when Americans for Limited Government was naming him our legislator of the year. And I had an hour-long conversation with him about it that was really informative. And we've talked to him about it over the years. And so I'm really, now that he's on the outside, I'm really interested in what he can tell us about potential legislative remedies without violating any of the classified information that he was privy to as a member of the House Intelligence Committee. So that's going to be a fun conversation, 10:30 in the morning tomorrow. I'd encourage you to put it on your calendar. It'll be right on this StreamYard, so it'll be an easy get. Let's see here. Where was I? Oh, yeah. So here's where we are. It's very simple. We now have Elon Musk trying to reestablish Twitter as a free thought platform, and it is driving the dominant left nuts because they can't have any of the platforms that have massive audiences break out of the mold of being, cookie cutter, one set of information fits all, because it destroys their monopoly on information and information getting out. And so it's caused massive problems, and the left is going nuts over it. And so we have, today, headline, Biden administration says it's keeping an eye on Elon Musk's Twitter. Well, let's just can you imagine if the Trump administration had Kayleigh McEnany has gotten up and said, we're keeping an eye on Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook, or we're keeping an eye on Jeff Bezos's Amazon. Can you imagine the uproar about government censorship and how dare they? Can you imagine? Well, right there, this is American Military News that I picked it up off of. But right there, you've got the press secretary who sits there and is being very open that they're threatening to use the full power of the United States government to attack a communications platform that they can't control. And that's their bitch. Sorry for the term. That's their complaint. It's that they can't control Twitter now. And since they can't control Twitter, they can't control information flow. And if they can't control information flow, they can't censor information from the American public. They can't afford to have free expression, free speech. The old, that old idea, gee, that's so quaint. Can't afford to have that happening because some people might not say exactly what's true. Never mind the fact that it's the federal government that more often than not are the ones who are giving us a spin. And as Bill O'Reilly might say, if he was doing marketing for Elon Musk, he might call Twitter the new no spin zone, because the way you counter spin is you have other ideas pushing back. So people can sit there and say, wait a second, that narrative doesn't make sense. I think this makes sense. By having the competition of arguments and competition of ideas, that's how you get to the truth. It's been that way since the dawn of civilization. And every time a government seeks to control the information flows to their populace, it is not because they're protecting the populace, it's because they're protecting the government. So, but Joe Biden has said, and out of his own mouth in the last 3 weeks, that Twitter, they're going to be looking at Twitter. We've got it confirmed by the press secretary. We have other things that are going on in terms of this. We have I just wanted to remind you of this little gem. This was Halloween, believe it or not. It's a perfect story for Halloween, since it's a scary one. Facebook and Twitter worked closely with the Department of Homeland Security and FBI to censor disinformation, also known as the truth. Now, this isn't news that occurred. They bragged about it. The FBI, and this, by the way, was 8 days before the election. The FBI bragged about their office in San Francisco, which is where Silicon Valley is just south of San Francisco. Their office in San Francisco has agents who specifically spend all their time talking to social media companies to alert them to different things that they don't think social media company that people should see. It's this collaboration. Once again, it's dangerous, because if you deny people the ability to have a cross-section of ideas, then you don't have any ideas. You only have what you're being fed. And I will admit right now, very candidly, that the fact that I'm sitting here on various social media platforms having this conversation is really the benefit of these social media conversations. And it makes the point that rather than censoring, they should encourage arguments, debates, fights, because A, that's in their business interest, and B, it's also in the national interest to have real discussions about real issues that matter. And there aren't very many issues that matter more than the capacity to have freedom of expression in the political domain. That's what the First Amendment's all about. Freedom of the press isn't so a bunch of people, with a lot of money can run newspapers. Freedom of the press was about free expression of ideas. And remember, at the time, the press was a bunch of broadside tabloids that were being published, across the country. There was no interlinking groups of people who were talking. They weren't doing dominant speech. You were getting ideas from Ben Franklin, who was a printer in Philadelphia, to printers who had different ideas in New York, different ideas in Boston, different ideas in Richmond, different ideas throughout the colonies, from little town printing presses to ones that are in bigger towns. Thomas Paine, you remember Thomas Paine? He wrote the Anyway, Thomas Paine wrote a best-selling pamphlet that was printed on a printing press and distributed around. It was the best sell. It was better selling than on a per capita basis than anything that's sold today, any Stephen King novel. And it was actually a discussion of basic human rights and liberties. things that, you know, back then in the primitive 1770s, the common person could understand and could discuss and could argue. And today we're not even allowed to read it, let alone discuss it and argue it. And it seems the more education we get, the less we're able to handle basic discourse. So anyway, that's one of the things that I that's an issue. And Elon Musk is taking a beating over this. He's getting attacked. We now see Apple, once again, they've withdrawn their advertising. They're now threatening the Twitter app on their Apple phones, saying they're looking at whether they should withdraw the app. You know, attempting to do to Twitter, massive Twitter, what they did to little Parler. When they destroyed Parler, it was about Parler, but it was less about Parler than it was a proof point of what they could do to others who didn't fall in line. Twitter was one of the big four in terms of communication platforms. And the fact that Apple would sit there and kind of wink and nod and say, gee, we could always take away your app, so the Apple iPhones won't be able to get Twitter. The fact that they can threaten that shows you the immense power that's being exerted against Musk, who has a lot of money, personal money, to lose if Twitter fails. And that personal power is being exerted not because they worry about employees being laid off. I mean, Apple lays off employees all the time. They build their stuff using slave labor in China. They're having a massive problem at the Foxconn plant where their stuff gets built, their iPhones get built because the people are protesting in the plant because they're locked down due to COVID in China, and there's protests in the plant because people can't go home. So there's lots of, Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, has a lot of problems in his distribution chain right now because he's still relying on China. And yet, what's he spending time doing? He's spending his time worrying about trying to shut down Twitter, because ultimately, if you're part of the cool kid club who controls the media platforms, you can't let the new kid disrupt your business model. You can't let the new kid, Elon Musk in this case, come in and break up your monopoly on information distribution. And that's how important this is to the left and to the dominant culture. Those who decide what our children are going to see, those who decide what we're going to see, those who decide whether or not you're going to see what I say. So that's the thing that's going on here. And nobody's talking about in that context. Once again, Elon Musk is an enigma. He's probably the most brilliant person in the 21st century because of the various things that he's conceived of, the things he's funded, and the various on so many different areas, making an impact in so many different areas of technology. Some of it kind of scary, the AI stuff and the like. But he's a forward thinker in all ways. Some of it works, some of it doesn't. As a forward thinker, he looks and he says, without thought, without freedom of thought, freedom of expression, forward thinkers can't survive. Forward thinkers can't thrive. And so he looks at this, he doesn't look at it from First Amendment perspective per se, he looks at it from a human perspective. And the difference between freedom and totalitarianism is information flow. And when information flow gets restricted in a very narrow pipeline, with only certain approved information gets out, then you no longer have information flow, you have thought control. And that's what Elon Musk is pointing at. That's why he's getting attacked. And it's why, quite honestly, I think it's really important that we spend some time on Twitter and be active in supporting him in any way we can. I'm not sending him money. I don't have money, but I don't have. If I sent him everything we had, he wouldn't. That would be the equivalent of the change that falls off his nightstand. So I don't think that's probably what we're going to do. But we can support the platform. We can support him in terms of our political power, and really keeping the discussion going about why this matters. So that's where we're going. I'm going to take some comments. Florida girl. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad you like the emails. We work really hard on them. We've got some great people who are doing them, and sometimes they don't go out as early because we're revising stuff in the morning based on things that we've learned. But you're going to get it 5 days a week minimum. We've never missed a day when we haven't sent it out. So, and I'm glad you like the content, and I hope that you'll share any articles that you see with your friends that you like, because the way we grow is by people like you going and sharing the content that you like, so other people get exposed to it, and other people can also subscribe to the free subscription. Jeanette, Jean Eddie, 123. Yes, when I have no idea what you're yesing, but I'm glad that you liked it. I was part of the presidential purge in January 2021. I'll never return to that platform. I'm also not going to participate in any social media. Florida, I understand this. I truly do understand this sentiment. It is and truthfully, it's one of my reasons. I've known Devin Nunes for a while, but it's one of the reasons I'm having Devin Nunes on the program tomorrow, and we're going to talk to him tomorrow, because one of my hopes is that we're trying to expand our presence on Truth Social, because a lot of people have either were purged off of the Facebook and Twitter, or left because of the purge that was going on. And they're now on Truth Social. And we want to reach people who are on Truth Social, because quite honestly, they're the ones, people on Truth Social, and this is not to denigrate anybody on any other audience, but on a per capita basis, people on Truth Social are more likely to share our content, are more likely to share our education materials we send out, share the cartoons, share the different research projects we do. And ultimately, if we're going to build an army, and this is a 501c4 function, not the foundation, which is what the fundraising thing is going out later on. Building an army where we're able to impact issues is significant. And the single best way to build an army is to be able to get people who are like-minded, who understand the issues, and give them a way to affect policy. This year, we've delivered over 26 million emails from people who are out working for a living, doing their job. But we've had 26 million emails sent to Congress, and some to corporations that were to try to convince those boards of directors that they should not engage in private vaccination mandates for their employees. Some of them were to baseball team owners who were sitting there trying and urging them not to move I guess that was last year, but it's an example, not to move the All-Star game out of Atlanta. We put a ton of emails into Major League Baseball owners, and with that exact intent, and got to some good effect. They moved it, but we left a mark. So we've used that resource in a lot of different ways to impact policy, both on the corporate and on the political levels. We've used it at state legislative levels. We've used it at local levels to try to stop localities from doing vax mandates in place. So there's been a lot of places where people have been able to weigh in, have been able to talk to elected officials and have their say, using a platform that we pay for, that we utilize, and that, quite honestly, is a means to an end. And the end is to have as many people as possible be able to have a conversation with their government officials on issues that matter. And the way we can maximize that is by having as many people as possible doing things like following us on Facebook, which increases your likelihood of getting our content. Becoming part of the Facebook group, that's a smaller group of people. Once again, no money involved. But becoming part of that Facebook group, that gets you get about 10% of our content delivered as opposed to 2%. You get signing up on the website and getting the emails. You're going to get, if you get the emails, check your spam filter if you're not getting stuff. But if you sign up for emails, you're going to get something every day from us, at least Monday through Friday. And I tried during the legislature's in session, I try to do one a week, which is on an issue that matters, where people can weigh in. You don't have to go in and do every one, but we're trying to give you a capacity to be mobilized, and make a difference. Because ultimately, our objective is not just to talk at people. Our objective is not just to send stuff out in the ether and hope that somebody listens. Our objective is to land a punch on Capitol Hill or with decision makers. And the punch is not a money punch, because we don't have money. We don't have the money to go. We don't have a PAC that's a national PAC. We don't have the money to go off and do a lot of the things that you can do with money. What we have is smart people who know where the leverage points are, and put you right on the leverage points, so you can push the buttons, so you can start pushing the lever. And if you have the right lever, the right fulcrum, you can move anything with enough force. And that's why the goal of increasing our email lists dramatically exists. That's why we've spent the resources this year to increase our Facebook presence from 121,000 to 280,000 approximately. And we're going to at least double that this next year, God willing. That's why we're hoping to increase the Truth Social presence dramatically. And having the conversation with Devin Nunes tomorrow is part of that. Because the more people who we can mobilize, the more impact we can have, the more reasons that politicians who are squishy on a lot of things then have to firm up. The pressure in Washington, D.C. is strong for big government. Everywhere around you in Washington, D.C., people are benefiting from big government. Your neighbors work for the government. At least a few. Everybody who lives here has neighbors who work for the federal government. Everyone who lives here and is in Congress or is a staffer in Congress or is working in administration sits there and they have programs they're trying to do. And of course, their programs are always good programs. But in order to get their good programs done, they got to vote for other people's bad programs. And it's only through our efforts that we slow this tide. And hopefully in 2025, we create an environment where the administrative state can be taken down by virtue of some simple changes in the law that will change the power dynamic forever. That's the goal. That's what we're going to do. We're going to get that done in 2025. We have to win some elections. We have to figure out how to beat these guys who, listen, if John Fetterman can win, then they can run Joe Biden again. He can never leave his basement. And apparently, 2.7 million people in Pennsylvania vote for him. So we have to figure out how to beat that. And we have a plan. We're working on it. It's going to cost a little bit of money, but but we've got a plan that I think will work. And so a plan that essentially says, you got 2.7 million. Well, we're going to have 3 million. You got 3.5 million. We're going to have 3.8 million. We're going to put so many people into play who are currently not registered to vote, are registered but don't vote. We're going to create an environment where they feel they have to vote for the survival of this country, and we are going to beat their brains in. I am so irritated. I'll use irritated. I'm so irritated over what happened in this election that we have, and quite honestly, we can't leave. I personally can't leave this up to the people who've been doing it. Watching the 1980s style campaigns they ran, which are really based on who gets paid in terms of consulting contracts. I can't allow that to dominate anymore. And I'm going to do everything I can to make certain we have the resources starting now to make that difference. And it's going to be a fight. It's hard work, but I believe we've got a system that we've put in place that does work. And all we need to do then is to find the money to fully implement it. And that includes a voter integrity campaign, voter registration campaign, and a voter turnout campaign, all focused around free market, free enterprise issues and freedom issues. That's what we're going to be talking about. That's what we're fighting over. We're going to fight to take this country back, and we're going to do it. But we have to have the power to do it, and that means you. That means tell your friends, get your friends to sign up. I can't do this without you. That's just the truth. We're a very small staff. We have a very low budget in terms of our overhead. I spend money on projects as I can raise it, but by and large, our overhead's minimal. And I need you to get your friends to become the key element, who are our sharing partners, who take our stuff, they share it, and encourage your friends to join the team. Because let's do to them what they're doing to us. Let's not let us be a hand. Let's be a fist. And with that, I appreciate all you guys are doing, and I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. This is Rick Manning signing off, and we will talk to you again tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. That's Eastern time. So if you're on the West Coast, California, where I grew up, that's 7:30 a.m. So it's an early bird thing for y'all. But we will cut it up and push it out off the live stream, so you'll have a video version that you can grab afterward as well. But for now, I just hope you'll put that on your calendar, and I will see you tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. This is Rick Manning, Americans for Limited Government, signing off.